You need to create an account for this. So you can click on Start Filing. So you go onto the Tax tab, and then it would ask you to create a profile. Click on Creating Your Profile, and then you could add whatever name you want to save it as. Quick one, if you do need to file the tax for another tax year, you can actually click here. You can file for a different tax year. So this is what the tax interface looks like. So again, of course, you have to enter your first name, your last name according to official documents, and then you have to put in your social insurance number, and then your preferred language, English. Which province do you live in? So as at 2024, where were you living? I'm going to put it as BC because I'm in BC. Is this return for a deceased person? Of course not, you're alive, so you would click on no. If you have an online CRA account, you can actually use this auto fill and add forms functionality. So what you would have to do is to just click on import form. So this is grayed out because again, I'm using a fake profile. So normally once you click on import forms, it takes you to your CRA online account, and there you're able to log in and then verify that you want the forms to be transferred here, and then it transfers all of your T4, T4A, and any form that has been submitted to CRA by your employers. Let's use the manual method for this. So you click on add forms, and then you get to see the tax assistant, and you have to fill a short survey and ask you certain questions about 2024. You get to see this page that just shows all of the forms that will be added to the return as you're filing because of all of the questions that you answered. On finish, this natural access code. So usually if you check your prior assessment, if you check your 2023 assessment, you would see this code here. What you have to do is to check your 2023 notice of assessment and put the code here. However, if you're filing your taxes for the first time, you would not get to see this code. So again, you have to put in your mailing address. Were you a Canadian resident for all of 2024? You answer based on your situation. So this is yes. This question asks about what province you resided in on December 31st. So I was still in BC. However, if your province or territory changed in 2024, so if you basically change residence, you can put it here. So is your home address the same as your mailing address? This is yes. In which province or territory do you currently live? Again, if it changed or it's the same, you just have to put it the same thing. Your marital status. So this question, do you have any dependents, speaks to if you have children or if you have a spouse. So you can click on this to see what the definition of dependent is. If this is your first time, you can click on either yes or no. So this is not my first time, so I'll click on no. Are you a Canadian citizen? No. So are you someone who's indigenous? So your answer yes or no. So no. So again, if you had any foreign property at this time, no. Did you sell your primary residence? No. Did you flip a property? No. So this question asks about opening an FHSA in 2024, and I clicked on no because I already had one in 2023, but you can click on yes if it's your first time opening an FHSA in 2024. This question asks about being confined to a prison, so of course I click on no. I always say no to this organ and tissue donor registry question. CRA my account. I already have one, so I clicked on I'm already signed up. But if you do not have an account yet, please click on yes, sign me up. So this is a section that you can actually use again to manually add forms. So if after filling that survey, all of the forms have been added here subsequently, but then if you go through and you know there are forms that you need that are not included, you can just come here and add the form manually. So again, the forms can be found by category, but if you're not sure what category the forms may fall into, you can just come and see the complete list of forms. So let's go on to start filling the forms that have been included. So the first one is its T4 employment income statement. So I found online an example of a T4 sample. So all you want to do, so this is the T4 you should have received from your employer. And so all you have to do is to copy in what's in the T4 that's given to you by your employers into this online form. So for example, line 14, we have 35,000. And so you just have to come to 14 here and include 35,000. So you have to do that for all of the numbers. Always make sure that everything that's filled in your T4 year is also included here. So if you come across a situation where there are some boxes in your T4 that are not included here, all you have to do is to click on box and then you add the box number. and then you click on what figure is in the box. So for this T4, we had box 45, but there's no box 45 here, so we'll have to add it manually. So now you can see that as you continue to fill, you get to see in this little corner how much possible refund that you will be getting. If you have another employer, you just have to come again and add another T4. For each T4 that you have to fill in a separate form for it. The next form that we have to fill here is investment income. So usually you would have a T5 if you have some form of savings account at the bank, which accrues some interest, or if you earn money through those investments, usually you receive a T5. So I don't have a sample T5 to show you right now. So let's just put in some dummy numbers. The next form to fill is the FHSA contribution form. Again, you would receive an FHSA receipt from whoever you open your FHSA account with, and the receipt would also be in this format. So you have to enter the name of the payer. So let's just assume this is also Scotiabank. And your contributions is usually line 18. So let's just say you put $2,000 in your FHSA. Again, you're just replicating whatever it's your tax receipt into these forms. And you could see because we added this contribution for the FHSA, we had our refund increased by about $472. So in my last video, I did explain that I usually claim employment expenses because I work from home. And if you haven't already gone through, please go through that video. And I would also advise that you go through the CRO website on how you can calculate your expenses from work from home, because they have a calculator that you should follow how it's calculated. So you just have to go to 2024 and then follow all of the instructions here. So normally when you're claiming work from home expenses, they ask what type of employee you are. So are you commission, whatever? So I would select salaried. They ask for your name of employer. So this will be based on the T4 slip that you already added in previous sections. And so workspace in the home. So you have to actually calculate your square footage of your home, the total square footage of your workspace, and then other expenses that are related to your home. So you have to kind of calculate what this is for the entire year. So I already have some of these numbers of it, but we're just going to put some dummy numbers in. So you have questions related to your home internet, your maintenance, and your rent. So based on this, you have about 2,000 plus, which you can claim as expenses for working from home. There are also other things you can claim based on your situation, such as parking and accounting and legal fees. Another area is motor vehicle expenses. So if you have a car for business, this is where you would usually claim. And then they just ask a general question around if there are any expenses that are not already included that you have to claim. The next one we're going to look at is the annual union professional like dues. Usually your union dues are included in your T4, so it's a box on the T4. But in a case where it's not included, you can find this number usually on the last paycheck for the year, so your last 2024 paycheck. So you can include it manually here if it's not already included in your T4. And also if you belong to certain professional careers or occupations and you have to pay some form of fees yearly, this is where you can also claim that. So the next form is the tuition and education amount. So if you were a post-secondary student, so either part-time, full-time, or you did some courses from some post-secondary institution where you had to pay fees, this is where you would claim it. So you would say yes. And then when you say yes, the tuition certificate form pops up. This is what the tuition enrollment certificate would usually look like. Again, you're just making sure and looking at the numbers here to see what you need to include here. So here we have part-time. Part-time here is 2 months. Full-time here is 6 months. And then the tuition fees is 10,605. So we're just going to include those numbers here. Included the tuition amounts. But if you have another slip to add, you can just click on add another slip. And then they ask certain questions. So here, this is no. Again, if you are a post-secondary student in an earlier year, you can either click yes or no based on your situation. And then if you have unused amounts, you can put them here, but if not, you can leave it blank. And then they ask about your Canada training credit. So usually in your notice of assessment of the previous fiscal year, so your 2023 notice of assessment, you would see this figure here. The next form is the RRSP contribution and deduction. So they'll ask for your 2024 RSP deduction limit. Again, this is something that you would see on your notice of assessment from the previous fiscal year. So let's just put 15,000 here. And then they ask if you had any RSP contributions. So this is one of the things I do to reduce my taxable income. So they ask about the type of contribution. So did you make the contribution between March 1st and December 31st, 2024? Or did you make the contribution between January 1st and March 3rd, 2025? So let's just leave it at March to December. And so we'll say Canada Life, RSP. Then let's say it's 5 grand. So you could see again, having this contribution has increased our refund by $160. And then normally people may have different IRSP accounts. So again, make sure to include all of the contributions from all of your IRSP accounts. If you don't have this plan, you could just see no. If you do not have any unused contributions, you can just click on no. So donations and gifts. So if you made any donations to charities, this is where you would include your amount. So we could just go to charity, Canadian Cancer Society, and let's say we give them $100. Also, if you have offerings, receipt from your offerings or tithes or whatever in church, this is also where you would add it. So you can add another donation. Again, normally some churches do register as charities, so you could add it as charity, the name of the church, and then the amount. Again, for all of these donations, make sure you always receive a tax receipt. Do you have unused donations? So I do not have one. No. So medical expenses. So usually you can claim medical expenses for yourself and also your dependents. If you already said you had a dependent, so you could say this is for me or your partner. And this is where I like to claim expenses such as like out of pocket prescription drugs. So I would usually keep all of my receipts for out of pocket prescription drugs, and then I would add the total amount. And then let's say I spent about $500 out of pocket. So for every eligible medical expenses, you just have to add the expense. So did you travel from your home to get medical expenses? I did not, so this would be no. Again, the rental tax credit for those in BC, you just need to put in your rental's address, how much rent you paid, so we already put $24,000. Before, how many months you stayed, 12, and then the name of your landlord. You can see by adding these rental tax credits, your refund has also increased by a certain amount. So it's good you keep all of your receipts that you use to pay rent, your transfers, and everything that you use to pay rent for the year. So let's assume that this is all of the credits, deductions, and everything I plan to claim. So what you have to do is to click on review and optimize. When you click on review and optimize, it basically tells you where there may be errors in your filing, where you should probably go and cross-check. And then it also gives you more suggestions of things that you may be eligible to claim for. So for example, it's suggesting here that, add the direct deposit information with the CRA if you haven't already. Again, if you have GST or HST credits you would like to claim based on your situation. Of course, I do not have any of this, so I'm not going to claim them. And then if you moved address, so again, just checking to see if your address is correct. Again, some of these things would flag because again, we're using like dummy numbers and dummy addresses. So again, it just helps you to look through your filing to make sure that everything is accurate. Again, when you cross check and everything is good, you just have to go to submit and then you submit. So you could see your refund is about over 5 grand. If you go down, you basically will see your total refund, your GST, HST rebates, and your RSP contribution for the following year. You would also see all of the tax forms that which you have filled. So this is the CRA version of the forms. Wealthsimple simplified the user interface for you in the earlier phases. So if you're okay with everything, you just have to submit your tax return and then you're done. You can either print your tax return to have a copy, and you also can save it as a PDF. But usually I just click on submit and then save the PDF. So that's it. I hope this was helpful for you. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the comments. Happy to help. And remember to like, share, and subscribe.